What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Fins Up Network. It's Ben Morgan, and it is Thursday of Lions Week, and that means it's time for my top three keys to victory. And I tell you what, watch this. If you like mine, go ahead, give this video the thumbs up. But regardless, I want to hear your top keys to victory on Sunday as well. So make sure you are dropping your top keys to victory in the comments. And before we get started, if you have questions that you would like answered on Saturday morning's final preview and prediction video, go ahead and drop those in the comments as well. And I will be getting to as many of those as possible. But let's get things fired up. First and foremost, we all want this. This is the week. Number one key to victory for me this week against the Lions is showcase that offense. Get back to how we looked the first few weeks of the season when we were scoring all those points, when we were putting up all those yards. And look, if there's a team to do it against, if there's a team to get right against, after we showed some rust last week against the Steelers, I don't think anyone's going to argue that. If there's a team to get right against, it's the Detroit Lions. They are allowing the most total yards per game, the ninth most passing yards per game, and the second most rushing yards per game. Giving up all of those yards has equated to points as well. They're not doing this bend but don't break. They are bending, they are breaking. They have allowed 32.3 points per game this season, the most in the NFL. Now, take a look at this, though, because I like to look at what they've done recently, and they were better recently. They played the Cowboys last week. It was also Dak's first week back, so maybe he was knocking off a little rust as well. They did allow 24 to Dallas, but if you look at how that game shook out, they allowed 10 points through the first three quarters. Dallas scored 14 in the fourth. One of those touchdowns was way at the end after the game was already in hand. So they did show some improvement last week against Dallas, but man, we need to see the offense. Remember the first quarter against the Steelers? Drove right down, got that touchdown, drove down the next two possessions and got field goals. Maybe not settling for field goals so much this time, but get that offense clicking, get it early. They're giving it up in the run and the pass. And think about the Dolphins offense earlier in the season. We were passing great. We weren't running at all. Well, guess what? Since Tua went out and then even back last week against the Steelers, we've shown that we can run the ball a little bit more now. The offensive line is coming together a little bit more. Raheem Mostert is taking off. If we can get that run, if we can get that going against a team that allows the most rushing yards, or what was it, the second most rushing yards per game, that's only going to help Tua and his rollouts and his play action passing. This is the get right game for the offense. Let's showcase that offense. Moving on to number two, contain the studs. Look, I'm not breaking any news here. The Lions are a rebuilding team. I think they're 1-5. They don't have a ton of studs. So what can you not allow against the Lions? Well, you can't let the studs that they do have be the ones that are going to defeat you. You got to limit Jamal Williams, DeAndre Swift, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and TJ Hawkinson to an extent. Because DeAndre Swift likely going to be back this week. He missed the last 3 games. But check this out. When he was playing the first 3 weeks of the season, he was averaging 8.6 yards per carry. And yes, it was only on 27 carries, so a small sample size. However, even on 27 carries to average damn near 9 yards per carry, very impressive. He got out to a hot start. And then Jamal Williams filling in for DeAndre Swift very well. Even when DeAndre Swift was healthy, Jamal Williams was still doing good as well. Jamal Williams has 6 rushing touchdowns on the season. He's averaging 4.5 yards per carry. They really don't have too much of an issue running the ball. They got the 7th most rushing yards per game in the entire NFL. So first and foremost, on the ground, you can't let them get hot early because that's only going to help their passing game. So you got to limit those two in the running game. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown. He actually, if you've paid attention to the Lions last week, he kind of got the Teddy Bridgewater treatment a little bit. He was pulled from the game because of the new concussion protocol. So he's likely going to play this week. He was pulled out from the spotter, not diagnosed with a concussion, so he'll likely be back this week. But in the Lions' one lone win, the opposing team let him go off. I think it was the Commanders. 9 catches, 116 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He added 68 yards on the ground as well. So if you can take away those running backs and if you can focus on taking their main stud away, look, we just talked about it. They're not filled with studs right now offensively. Jamison Williams isn't going to be playing in this game. So if you can contain Hockenson as well, yes, historically the Dolphins have struggled against tight ends. So we need to contain Hockenson as well. But then you're looking at Josh Reynolds, Khalif Raymond. I've said enough right there. Contain the studs, and defensively, we should be fine. And that brings me to point number 3, because it's going to maintain on the defensive side of the ball. You know how banged up we are. Number 3 key, the reserves need to continue to hold it down. In the secondary alone, Eric Rowe, Verone McKinley, Clayton Fedulum, Noah Igbenogany, Justin Bethel, Keon Crossan, and Kader Kohu, if they can go. These guys are all people that we never really imagined getting a lot of playing time this year, let alone already week 7, week 8. But man, for my money, they've held up better than I would have imagined. And I'm guessing that you probably feel pretty much the same way. But you know what? At the end of the day, think about last week. Played against Kenny Pickett, a guy making his second, third NFL start. Hasn't been around the block. Doesn't know the ins and outs, the intricacies of playing the quarterback position. He probably didn't take advantage of the secondary the way a veteran quarterback would. And I know none of us are super scared of Jared Goff. However, Jared Goff has been around. He's seen a lot of different defenses. He knows what to exploit. He's a veteran quarterback. So if there's someone that's going to potentially be able to exploit this defense, it is a veteran quarterback. And I would assume he'll take the same approach, kind of like what we've seen recently with teams. Just Kenny Pickett didn't throw it at Xavier Howard. That's just something that they'll probably try to avoid. They're probably going to try to avoid, or they're probably going to try to exploit these young guys that don't have quite as much playing experience. And if you think about our defense as well, if we can get to Jared Goff, likely with 4 or 5 rushers, because the zero blitz, did you see it much against the Steelers? The answer is no, not really, because right now we don't have the personnel to be able to lock down those wide receivers on the outside and send our safeties, send Javon Holland. Brandon Jones is on the IR now. We simply don't have the personnel, because when we try to run it, you'll see the quarterback take a quick 5 to 8 yard out to a wide receiver. And it's like, well, why do we even bother with that? We're literally just giving these people half of a first down every single time we bring that zero blitz. So we're not seeing it quite as much right now because of all the injuries, because of all the personnel. And that's just going to take getting to Jared Goff. That's going to make that so much more important, because the quicker we can get to Goff, the more pressure we can put him on under, the less that we have to rely on these reserves in the secondary. And like I said, they have performed very well. They've exceeded my expectations. But at the end of the day, they're reserves for a reason. They weren't the guys starting for us week 1 against the Patriots, and that was for a reason. They are reserves for a reason. They've done well, but man, we need to pray. We need to hope they can continue to carry that on this week against the Lions and ensure that 5th victory of the season. But that is what I've got for my keys of the game against the Detroit Lions. Like I said, drop your keys to victory in the comments below. And if you have any questions you would like me to hit on the final preview and prediction video that drops Saturday morning, go ahead and drop those in the comments as well. But that is my time for today, Miami Dolphins fans. And until that next video, fins up.